Hi, everybody. I have 15 minutes, so I'm going to go through this really fast. My name is Ali Rez. I work for BBDO. I'm the Regional Creative Director for Middle East and Pakistan. I'm here today to talk about something really important that's happening in the advertising world, which covers a lot of media space, of course. Is there any particular place that I have to aim to? Oh, here we go. So I'm here to talk about not making advertising. I'm here to talk about making news and what the actual difference is. As I go through this, I'll touch on some topics that have been covered already, but just generally speaking about how you grab attention effectively. This is Orson Welles. In 1938, he did a radio show which a lot of us would know about, where he did a reading of The War of the Worlds. And what was remarkable about this was that it wasn't just any radio show. The way he read it, a lot of people thought that it was actually a news report, and they panicked. This was made into a big deal much later on by Orson Welles himself. But the show itself and the report on the show ended up on the front page of the newspapers. Not many shows ended up being reported like this, but it was an amazing publicity stunt, which Orson Welles pretended that he had thought about before, but really hadn't. Mostly it was an accident. But this is a great example of how something that shows up in the news can be still talked about 80 years later. This is what we do in advertising. This is the ultimate goal. We spread the word. But at a time when there is an incredible amount of competition, especially in terms of content. I kind of missed the 90s when food photography was actually just restricted to a very few photographers. Now everybody who has a camera with a phone is a food photographer. You're battling for content awareness and for content attention. And that makes it much, much more difficult to spread the word. As Howard Gossett said, people don't read ads. They read things that interest them, and sometimes that's an ad. And I think that applies to news as well. When you're going through news online, you'll mostly click on things that interest you, that connect with you, not with pretty much everything. I'm going to show you an example of what I mean when I say, how do you get into the news instead of writing an ad? This was a video that was done in 2000. So it's old, but it was pretty effective when it came out. And it broke down some barriers about the difference between what seems real and what doesn't, and how effective it was in that sense.
What's up, everybody? This is Mark Echo, and this is how I spread the word.
They're facing Air Force One with graffiti on the runway. Impossible?
This grainy video provided by Still3.com is circulating the internet.
It's a home video. Shows a graffiti artist named Mark Echo on a covert operation. It shows taggers going after what looks like Andrews Air Force Base.
That is what looks like Air Force One. And that's what looks like two people scaling a fence at Andrews Air Force Base.
Once inside the restricted area,
someone runs to Air Force One.
They can be seen writing "Still Free" on one of the plane's engines.
That says Still Free. Those guys tagged Air Force One, which is why this video has been rocking the internet. Viral marketing at work again.
Still free, baby.
it was so convincing that
The Air Force actually started investigating.
And then they too found out it was all a hoax.
a very elaborate hoax
Successful clothing designer Mark Echo
rented a 747
And painted on one side to look like the president's plane.
and fooled a lot of people. The president that flies in it doesn't own the plane. We the people own it. It's a symbol of our freedom to express ourselves.
Still free, baby. How do you spread the word?
Spread the word. Spread the word. So this was an assignment, a brief to get something started virally. And this was done back in 2000. And they still managed to get 114 million viewers of this film that they made, which the Air Force actually investigated because they thought it was real. A really clever idea. They made it seem as if Air Force One was actually tagged by somebody. And it's extremely effective because it showed up in the news. The news became the media space for this particular advertisement. So very cleverly, they didn't have to buy any space. They let the news do their job for them. In 2000, our attention span was 12 seconds. Now it's 8 seconds. Humans are evolving to consume less and less in terms of attention spans. And what's more remarkable is that Gen Z is supposed to be 2.8 seconds. And if you say that that's unbelievable, just try to think about how fast you scroll through your news feed. It's actually even less than 2.8 seconds sometimes. Just quickly scroll through. What makes you stop is what's effective. And sometimes a really amazing news item might make you stop. Compare that to a goldfish, which gives you 9 seconds, actually. We've beaten goldfish in terms of attention. So the question is, oh, and here's a really important point. By 2020, Generation Z will account for an astounding 40% of all consumers. So you're talking to people who have 2.8 seconds of attention spans, and you're writing content that you think they're going to sit around 30 seconds or 60 seconds to watch, but they're really not going to, not if it doesn't interest them. You have to get them within 2.8 seconds. I spent some time in Central America. Does anybody know what this animal is? It's a howler monkey. Has anybody heard a howler monkey? Here, they're really small monkeys, but the noise they make sounds like something of a mix of a T-Rex and a constipated Sylvester Stallone. It's remarkable the kind of noise they can generate out of such a small figure. It's really relevant to what we do because we don't believe that the budget you have should dictate the kind of noise you can make. You can make a lot of noise out of a very, very tiny amount of budget as long as the idea is really strong. I think we saw that with Mark Echo as well. With a really strong idea, they reached pretty much the entire world. Some ways you can do it. You can hijack technology. This is a really, really amazing example that came up this year, and it specifically targets the 15-second TVC format. How do you use a TVC in 15 seconds that's so effective that it transcends the general description of a television advert?
Listen, Burger King, quit messing with my mind. Quit messing with my emotions.
You're watching a 15-second Burger King ad, which is unfortunately not enough time to explain all the fresh ingredients in the Whopper sandwich. But I got an idea. Okay, Google, what is the Whopper burger?
According to Wikipedia, the Whopper is a burger
consisting of a flame-grilled quarter-pound beef patty,
sesame seed bun, mayonnaise, lettuce, tomato,
pickles, ketchup,
and sliced onion.
The problem is the definitions are coming from the Whopper's Wikipedia page.
People trolled the absolute hell out of Burger King by constantly changing what Wikipedia said.
Patty made with 100% medium-sized child.
And after a few back and forth entries, Burger King eventually restored the original content.
Google says it made changes to stop its devices from responding.
At first, Google had said it would fix it, but then apparently Burger King released additional ads last night that still trigger it, so wow.
Okay, Google.
Okay, Google, what is
The Whopper burger.
Oh, it did work.
It did work.
These were the results.
9.3 billion global impressions. $135 million in earned media.
Trending topic on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Google Trends.
Burger King's most talked about TV spot in history.
So amazing device there. They hijacked Google Home and they transcended the fourth wall of advertising. It's a really clever way to jump into somebody's living room. A lot of people hated it. Google took it down, but it was incredibly effective because you saw how much news was covered on this, and that's how they did it. Another way to do it is around acts, not ads. That's another system where you actually do something which goes beyond just a regular TVC that you're writing.
Beer consumption in the U.S. is expected to be sluggish this year.
Sales have fallen 17%.
Beer sales have been drying up in recent years.
Nearly 40 years, the Miller Coors Brewery in Eden is shutting its doors for good. Shutting its doors for good.
What would you do if I told you could save the world by drinking beer? It sounds crazy, but it's true.
Last week, a new fuel source was revealed, which comes from the ethanol created during the beer brewing process.
Brutrolium. It's a biofuel made from yeast and grain that's left over after they finish making beer.
What we can see is it hasn't been done anywhere else in the world.
They are recruiting guys. They are actually recruiting guys to drink more beer for the planet. What a job.
Drink a beer and save the world. You'll hear that? That's every man's dream.
Brutrolium.
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 Petroleum. Brutrolium.
Se llama Brutrolium.
DB Breweries has created 300,000 litres of what they're calling Brutrolium.
Brutrolium emits 8% less carbon than traditional petroleum.
That's 500,000 tonnes of carbon you're saving from going into the environment.
The supply? Well, it relies entirely on you drinking beer.
People can't seem to get enough of it. The brewery that came up with the idea is known as DB Export. It's selling its Brutrolium at 60 filling stations across New Zealand.
Heineken has got massive global footprint in breweries. Now 50 of the biggest breweries want to take part in this. So next year we're rolling it out on a global scale.
Sorry, babe, can't go to your sister's house. Me and the boys got to drink some beer. Brutrolium is saving the planet.
Where are you going?
To save the world.
What time are you going to be back?
About 9. Text you if I'm going to be late.
Every single word in that case study was from newscasters. That's what happened. They created an act, not an ad. They opened up gas stations to sell beer made by the byproduct. Pretty brilliant. This was done by Office in New Zealand. There's some other stuff you can do. This is done by Office in Australia. They invented a human being that could survive a car crash, and that's what that human being would look like. His name is Graham, and he has an extended rib cage. He doesn't have a neck, inset face, inset ears. Even the chest is padded with his own airbag, and that's what a human would look like if they had to survive a car crash. And it ended up in the news everywhere because it was a sculpture design. They decided that they won't shoot an ad talking about driving safely. They'll invent a human being around it. Again, a good question we ask ourselves is, will your work make a good headline in the news? That's the ultimate test. How far would you be able to push it so that it's not just an ad, it transcends that space and actually becomes something that people want to discuss and report on? The magic phrase for us is earned media. Why would you want to spend money when you can come up with something really clever that actually people will report for you? That seems to be the smarter way to do it. But you have to come up with a really clever device that people would want to report on. So here's a question, and here's something we did in Pakistan, where we took a $1,200 budget, and we managed to get $182 million of earned media outside. That's an absolute figure with billions of impressions around the world, and the actual budget was just $1,200. That's it, which actually eventually got donated, so the actual budget became $0. But we still managed to get $182 million. So I'm just going to wrap up with the case study. This was around a cause. It was cause-based. We collaborated with a foreign artist who helped us put this together, and it pretty much broke through every news agency, every major news agency in the world, with only one press seeding. And by press seeding, I mean we didn't even pay for it. We just sort of told them, hey, would you like to run this? And they did. And then the whole world caught on.
In the last decade, predator drone strikes in Pakistan have killed more than 1,000 innocent civilians, including more than 200 children.
I no longer love blue skies. In fact, I now prefer gray skies. The drones do not fly when the skies are gray, and for a short period of time, the mental tension and fear eases.
FFR has been trying to raise awareness of this issue. Operators routinely describe their casualties as bug splats, since humans look like disposable bugs from far above. Most protests in Pakistan go unnoticed globally, so we decided to talk to the drone operators directly.
The new project laid out a giant poster of a young child with the hopes that it will be visible from the sky. The group installed the picture in an unnamed town in a rural Pakistani province close to the northwest border with Afghanistan.
The drone operator will henceforth not see what looks like a bug, but an actual face of a child staring back at them. The installation, part of French artist JR's Inside Out movement, was also designed to be captured by satellites to make it a permanent part of the landscape on mapping sites. All this happened under a simple campaign hashtag.
Not a bug splat.
Not a bug splat.
Huge poster of a child's face.
It is not an anonymous dot on a landscape, but an actual child's face.
The campaign went viral overnight.
With earned media estimated at over $182 million, the installation put the issue on the world map.
It was brought up by members of the National Assembly of Pakistan and became the poster image for global pressure that helped reduce civilian and children deaths. We had reached and affected our target audience.
The Not a Bug Splat project is something that could have a lot of impact, and that these children deserve a free and happy lifestyle, and we've taken it.
The girl's picture became a powerful message that said, "We are humans, not bugs."
Only one press seating, and in 2015 it was the 5th most awarded outdoor work on this planet. Just one press seating. Don't make ads, make news. Thank you.